Sam Harris, The End of Faith, Religion, Terror, and the Future of Reason. In The End of Faith, Religion, Terror, and the Future of Reason, Sam Harris dives deep into the roots of religious faith and unveils the dangers it poses in today's world. Harris discusses the distinction between spirituality and religion, and argues that it is possible to maintain a sense of the sacred without embracing irrational beliefs. The book demonstrates how religious extremism, from Palestinian suicide bombers to September 11th, has brought tremendous suffering and violence to the world. Harris also challenges the notion that religious moderates are more rational, and reveals the contradictions between intolerance and tolerance ingrained in major religions.
The dangerous power of religious faith. The power of religious faith is undeniable, but is it always a force for good? Author Sam Harris argues that faith can be dangerous and that society should move away from relying on it. He notes that people hold their religious beliefs so deeply that these ideas shape how they live, even when their beliefs lead them to commit murder. While modern culture regards it as impolite to judge someone else's religious practices, Harris argues that this is an overly tolerant attitude that amounts to blindness. Ultimately, he believes that the world would be better and more peaceful without religious faith, which he claims has given rise to some of the most horrific acts of violence in recent history. Harris contends that it is possible and desirable to touch the sacred through human reason alone, and that society must move away from faith-based systems if it hopes to achieve true peace and harmony. The fallacy of religious moderation. The idea of moderation in religion is a deception that leads to intellectual dishonesty. Fundamentalism is the purest form of religion and moderates lack faith. Society sees religion as a positive source of spirituality, but religion-inspired tragedies are caused by human nature, not faith. True faith is the solution to violence and hate. But how can believers tolerate other religions if only their own grant eternal salvation? From a fundamentalist perspective, a moderate is a failed extremist. Spirituality versus religion. The irrationality of faith. In Spirituality and Religion Are Very Different, the author argues that spirituality should be rational and shouldn't require faith in unprovable concepts. In their view, society is too tolerant of irrational beliefs and should not demand that people speak tactfully about them. The author questions the logic behind religious beliefs and asks how anyone can believe in transubstantiation or divine voices coming from toasters. The article concludes with a discussion of the link between faith and extremism, with the author stating that those who commit atrocities in the name of faith are not cowards but rather have a perfect faith, which is a terrible thing to be. Though some theologians have attempted to rationalize faith, the author contends that the essence of faith is inherently irrational, anti-rational, and gullible. Religions even praise ignorance, which is problematic for society. The dangers of faith-based beliefs. In this book excerpt, the author draws attention to the dangers of faith-based beliefs. The author argues that while religious leaders cannot defend their claims, they remain deeply convinced of the truth. Religion has been used to justify torture and killing for centuries and has been a force for regression in the world. Examples include Christian opposition to condoms and stem cell research, which could help prevent the spread of AIDS and cure diseases. Finally, the author notes that Muslim extremists take every word of the Quran literally and declare that religion of peace is not accurately informed. The clash of religion and science. The book takes on a provocative and controversial stance that religion has been the cause of stagnation for centuries, particularly in the realm of science. The author argues that the world's obsession with religion has prevented science from advancing as quickly as it should have. The book delves into the dangers of fanaticism, not just in terms of science but also for society as a whole. The author believes that the Islamic faith is the most dangerous religious doctrine and that Western society is, in fact, at war with it. The book presents a compelling argument that Islamic society's backwardness is due to the faith's underlying principles, which encourage violence and intolerance. The author argues that Islam's suffocating rules and rituals waste human resources, particularly for women. The book concludes by stating that the only thing that could potentially change the Islamic world's beliefs is the realization that their society is failing, an observation that may cause them to rethink their doctrines. Religious faith and its implications. Almost every member of the U.S. government appears to be religious. However, ethical notions are rooted in humanity's genes rather than religion. The idea of God is a convenient excuse to justify things that appear impossible. Murder being wrong cannot be proven similarly to a planet's existence, so humans employ a deus ex machina to command what our genes compel. Biology denies the existence of an omnipotent God who designed the world since monstrosities exist and occur. Moreover, people's belief in God pits groups against each other and justifies violence towards non-believers. The dangers of religious faith. This book argues that religion is a dangerous superstition which humanity should dispense with. Since religious beliefs cannot be proven or disproven and often defy the workings of nature, the author suggests that people do not need religion to lead a good life. Instead, the author proposes that selfishness could be a more reliable and trustworthy guide to finding happiness. The author argues that even contemplatives who have a great deal of love and compassion are acting out of self-interest. Moreover, the book claims that religious moderates are bearers of a terrible dogma, as they imagine that respecting unjustified beliefs will lead to peace. The author suggests that higher states of mind are pleasant and that being ethical feels better than being unethical, and therefore, people should act rationally. In an age of nuclear weapons and bioterrorism, religion is deemed too great a risk factor for humanity to tolerate. The book concludes that religion hinders humanity's potential to achieve the good life unaided by any deity.
Harris concludes that religious faith is an outdated and dangerous force in our increasingly connected and multicultural world, arguing that it often encourages violence, animosity, and irrational beliefs. He posits that ethics and morality can be derived from human nature and rational thought, rather than religious dogma. The book pleads for a world where spirituality and rationality harmoniously coexist, abandoning divisive and unsupported religious ideologies. Ultimately, The End of Faith urges readers to critically examine the far-reaching consequences of faith, to embrace reason and evidence-based thinking, and to engage in a dialogue capable of guiding humanity towards a more peaceful and enlightened future.